Alan Greenspan was Federal Reserve Chair for almost 20 years, and soon after he left one of the world's most powerful positions, the economy suffered from one of the biggest financial downturns. Well, Sebastian Mallaby is the author of a new biography about Greenspan, The Man Who Knew. Mallaby is also a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. And Sebastian, it's great to have you back here. You write about a lecture that Greenspan gave way back before he was Fed chair when he called the Fed, quote, one of the historic disasters in American history. Where did this view come from?
You couldn't make that irony up, right? I mean, the man who embodied the Federal Reserve said it should not have been created. This is something he said when he was in his late 30s. In 1964, he gave lectures under the auspices of Ayn Rand, the libertarian novelist. And I knew that these lectures had to be somewhere, they had to be written down someplace. And eventually I tracked down a believer in Ayn Rand with a fantastic basement, right? Beautifully organized filing system. And in there was the 300-page transcripts of Greenspan's lectures when he was a full-on Ayn Rand libertarian.
Now, he was Fed chair for almost 20 years, like we mentioned. That's an eternity when you look at what other Fed chairs, what their tenure was. But how was the 2008 financial crisis able to brew sort of under his watch? I mean, was there a certain mistake that he made?
Sure. I mean, Greenspan went from hero when he was chairman to zero after the crisis. It's the most amazing correction in somebody's reputation I've ever witnessed. And he made a mistake. You cannot be the most important financial statesman in the world and then have the world blow up and then say, gee, it wasn't my fault. That clearly was a mistake. But the interesting thing is that it's not the mistake that most people think. In other words, most people think financial regulation was the mess. The truth is, he tried on that. I did Freedom of Information Act requests and so forth. I know that he tried. The problem is the American system, the politics, makes it very difficult to fight bubbles with regulation. So I think interest rates were the mistake. He should have hiked more at the end of his tenure.
Well, and he did try to limit the size or the scope of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and those institutions were largely credited with causing the financial crisis, right, giving out mortgages like they were candy.
Well, that's a good example of the problem. I mean, whether some people say Fannie and Freddie were central, others say they were incidental, they were clearly something to do with the problem of real estate bubbles. And the point that you're making is right. I mean, Greenspan made an alliance with the White House around 2003, 2004, and he went after Fannie and Freddie and said they should have their portfolio size limited. And what happened was Fannie and Freddie ran a TV ad showing a Hispanic couple talking to each other and saying, we wanted to get the new house, maybe we can't afford it because the bad guys in Congress are going to take away our mortgage, they're going to clamp down on Fannie and Freddie. So this TV ad was a warning to anybody who went on Greenspan's side that they would be killed by negative ads in their congressional districts.
So when we hear people say, oh, Greenspan caused the 2008 financial crisis, is that fair, or there's more to it than that?
There's more to it than that. I mean, you know, as I say, he tried on Fannie and Freddie, he tried on subprime mortgages, passing new rules in 2001, which everybody forgot, but they're there in the record. What he did not do, I mean, I call my book The Man Who Knew, because I think he knew that there was financial instability brewing. He was not the man who acted, and he should have raised interest rates with more determination.
All right, now, but he also did a lot of things right. I mean, he was the Fed chair in the 90s, and we all know that the economy was firing on all cylinders, so to speak, in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, we live right now in the era of the backlash against experts. And Greenspan was the ultimate expert, who in his day was the absolute sort of, reigning commander of the US economy, called the Maestro because of his ability to conduct the US economy like it was an orchestra. You know, there were Alan Greenspan t-shirts, Alan Greenspan dolls.
Wow,
you know.
He was a rock star.
People compared him to Prozac because he lifted the mood of Americans, right? And I think he achieved that partly through luck. The economy was in a great patch, globalization, technological change was driving up growth, driving up productivity. So he was lucky, but he was also brilliant. And he was brilliant because he combined, on the one hand, economic expertise, on the other hand, political savvy, knowing how to establish the Fed's independence in a way that I think some modern central bankers are forgetting.
All right, now how is Greenspan different or the same from our current Federal Reserve Chair, Janet Yellen, who was in this sort of bind in the sense that they want to raise interest rates, but there's obviously a lot of headwinds out there that's keeping them at bay?
Right, and I think it's a great contrast because Janet Yellen is in a situation where on the one hand, some people attack her for being too tight because inflation is below target still.
Or too political, like Donald Trump says.
Or too loose because asset bubbles might be beginning to inflate. So she's attacked in all kinds of ways, and you do not hear a clear voice from her saying, my critics are wrong, here's why they are wrong, and really laying, I mean, she tries, but because of the new cacophony of different voices, all Fed governors speak up, and you hear all these different voices, there isn't one clear message in the way there used to be when Alan Greenspan was in charge.
All right, do you think Alan Greenspan would raise rates in December?
I think he probably would, yes. He's a skeptic of the new monetary tools. I think he would raise rates.
All right, Sebastian Mallaby, just incredible stuff. You spent 5 years working on this book, so we thank you for stopping by.
Thank you very much.
I'm Scott Gamm, and you're watching The Street.